I did a 4K 60 filming test in 76 degrees inside to see how long these cameras would last under those circumstances. I did it for both battery and for heating, and this thing overheated 6 times in the test, and the Ultra was able to film for 1 hour and 45 minutes and 57 seconds before the whole thing was dead. I started off the test by removing both cameras from the pod. I'm going to give you the quick summary of that information, and then I'm going to go into the deep dive for those of you that really want to know the nitty-gritty details. But I checked this every 5 minutes for the entire thing. So for 1 hour and 45 minutes, I was checking these every 5 minutes. So the Ultra outside of the pod was able to film for basically 35 minutes before it dropped to 7%, and it said that it needed to be reattached to the pod. So that's when I reattached it. So I got 35 minutes out of the Ultra, and then I had to put it back in here. But then once it was in here, at 4K 60, I was able to continue filming. All of this was continuous. I didn't stop recording ever. I was able to keep going for 1 hour, 45 minutes, and 57 seconds. So that's a pretty long time at 4K 60, but I was in like a controlled 76-degree environment inside of our house. All right. The Nano, on the other hand, did significantly better. At 35 minutes, it was only at 18%. So it was definitely doing better than the Ultra, but still 35 minutes, 18%. And then we had the first problem. At 38 minutes, the Nano overheated. And it overheated 6 times throughout the course of this full test, whereas the Ultra, as I said, never overheated once. I also got a warning message that it couldn't charge the camera on the Nano because it was too hot. That didn't actually seem to affect the filming or anything like that, but it was kind of tedious. So that's the end result. This thing overheated 6 times. It overheated at the 38-minute mark, the 64-minute mark, the 79-minute mark, the 93-minute mark, the 98-minute mark, and then like the 100-minute mark, and that's when I gave up. I was just tired of the overheating, so I quit trying, and I let the Ultra just go until it died. And like I said, it got 1 hour and 45 minutes and 57 seconds. So pretty good there. Now, let's run into the nitty-gritty details for those of you that really want to know how all of this played out in the 5-minute increments. So I started the test off by taking both cameras out of their pods, all right, just like that. And I have all my numbers right here. So if you look at the thing on the side, it'll show up there, but the very first numbers on the left is just the minutes, so like 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 minutes kind of thing. The second number is always going to be the Nano. That would be the first camera. So maybe I'll flip these so this kind of goes in that same pattern, all right? So the first numbers are always going to apply to the Nano, and then the second numbers are going to the Ultra. So at the 5-minute mark, the Nano was at 91%, and the Ultra was at 93%, just these cameras by themselves, all right? At the 10-minute mark, they were both at 80%, so we're tracking pretty similar. At the 15-minute mark, the Ultra is now dropping below. It's at 67%, and the Nano was at 70%. Then at the 20-minute mark, the Nano was at 58%, and the Ultra was at 53%, and then this is where we start to see a rapid decrease for the Ultra. At the 25-minute mark, the Nano is at 47%, and the Ultra is at 38%. At the 30-minute mark, the Nano is at 34%, and the Ultra is at 22%. And then at the 35-minute mark, that's when I had to put the Ultra back in the case, but the Nano was at 18%. And then at the 38-minute mark, the Nano overheated. I gave it a 1-minute break, started filming again. Now, I never stopped the Ultra, it just kept going. But I gave the Nano a 1-minute break, started filming again, and then these are the new numbers. So neither one of the cameras were able to charge the camera while they were filming. All right, they basically just kept it at the flat line. So you'll notice that like these second sets of numbers now, the first set before the slash is the actual camera battery. The second set is the pod battery. So you're gonna see that number go down as the pod is keeping the camera alive, but you'll notice that the camera number doesn't go up, all right? So the Nano battery basically stays at 6% and then 5% all the way down, and the Ultra battery just stays at 7% until the very end when even the pod can no longer charge the camera, all right? So something to note at that level is like if you are recording with the camera and it's at like 40% and you put it back in the pod, it won't actually increase the battery life of the camera. It will just keep it where it is as this thing now drains. That just seems to be what it's capable of doing, so that's what you could expect. Just something to note. Now, what happens at the 40-minute mark is interesting to me because now the Ultra had already been charging for a little bit, but at the 40-minute mark, we have 6% on the Nano and 99% on the pod for the Nano. We have 7% on the Ultra and 87% for the Ultra pod. And then you can see the numbers dropping down. I'm not going to run you through all of those, but at the 64-minute mark, the Nano overheated again. So I got 25 more minutes of filming out of the Nano before it overheated. This time I gave it a 3-minute break to try and let it cool down a little bit more, and the Ultra just kept going. So while the Ultra is filming, the Nano is just chilling. I start the Nano back up again. I got 12 more minutes of filming out of the Nano before it overheated again. So I got 38 minutes, 25 minutes, 12 minutes, 8 minutes, 5 minutes, and then 1 minute, and it just kept overheating. So at that point, I was like, I'm done. This was also really frustrating because you don't expect it to overheat. You don't know when it's going to happen. Now, I will say, I've done this test at least twice now. I didn't go full 5-minute increments, but I've tested like the filming stuff, and it seems to overheat around the same time each time. I haven't tested at 4K 30 or anything like that, but I figured 4K 60 would be a good like worst case scenario. So that's kind of what we have going on. The Ultra basically does a pretty good job of just hanging on to incremental decreases throughout this whole thing. We go from 57% to 52% to 45 to 39 to 33 to 26, and you can kind of see how that thing is going down. And that's pretty much it. That would be like the experience. So in summary, the Ultra does go at 4K 60 for 1 hour and 45 minutes-ish. In a controlled 76-degree environment. You add some heat there, it's probably going to decrease, but that's what you could expect, and I did not have any overheating issues. And you can bank on getting around 30 minutes with just the actual camera module all by itself. Maybe 35, somewhere in there, all right? The Nano, on the other hand, is going to give you basically 35 to 40 minutes of straight filming with the battery and everything, fine. You'd be at like 18%-ish, but the overheating seems to be what's going to stop it. And then you have the actual like trying to recharge this camera while dealing with the overheating. If you're constantly trying to record, that's going to be an issue. What I will say is, if you aren't doing that and you're just taking little clips like I did in my beach video, which you could check out on the channel or whatever, it's just like a beach day vlog kind of thing, and I filmed with this camera the whole time, I didn't have any overheating issues. I was outside, the wind was blowing, it was definitely hotter, but I wasn't filming straight. I was filming at 4K 60, and it didn't seem to be a problem at all. And I filmed for like over an hour, hour and a half, I'd say. I had the camera on me, but it wasn't filming straight. That ended up being like a 10-minute video. I think in total I had a little over 20 minutes of footage, just little clips here and there. And so I think for most people, the overheating is actually not going to be an issue unless you are really trying to film for like 10, 15 minutes straight. Then you're gonna have an issue. But if you're just grabbing little clips here and there, probably not going to have a problem. Unless it is sitting in like direct sunlight, then yes, that's actually going to be a problem. So that's something to consider. And then when it comes to charging these cameras, I'll go ahead and do this little part of this video as well. I went ahead, drained both cameras down to complete zero, put this guy on there like that, plugged them both in at the same time, and here's the way that it went. At the 10-minute mark, the Nano camera was at 60% and the pod was at 35% at 10 minutes. So 60 and 35. The Ultra was at 62 and 17, which I thought was really interesting. Like the camera in the Ultra was basically at the exact same pace as the camera for the Nano, but the pod was way behind at 17%. But things started to switch as we got into the second half of that. So at the 20-minute mark, the Nano was only at 73%, but the Ultra was already at 93%. So a huge jump for that second half. And then the Nano module was at 56%, and the Ultra module was at 42%. So it seemed like if you only had 10 minutes to charge, then the Nano is going to get a little bit more juice out of it and last a little longer. But if you have it a little bit more time, then the Ultra is going to like catch up and supersede. And I tested these at the exact same, like they're basically at 10-watt charging. So at the 30-minute mark, the Nano was at 87% and then 75% for the pod, and the Ultra was at 90 or was at 100% already. So at the 30-minute mark, Ultra's already at 100% with the module being with the camera screen pod at 87, whereas the Nano was at 87 and 75, so a good bit behind. At the 40-minute mark, the Ultra is maintaining 100%, and then the pod is only at 93%. And then the Nano is at 94 and 99, so still behind. And at the 50-minute mark, so definitely not like a super fast charge, but at the 50-minute mark, the Ultra is fully charged, which it should have been anyway, and then the Nano is just shy of that fully charged thing. It was at 99% on the little module, or the Vision dock. So that is how the recharging went for me after that whole experience. And what I could say is, I mean, you're looking at basically 30 minutes is going to give you full charge for these guys. I think it was closer to 35 for the full charge on the Ultra. I know I checked it at 40, but I'm pretty sure we were basically at that. Oh no, yeah. Never mind, I did that wrong. At the 40-minute mark, it was at 93%. So not full charge. But the camera pod is going to get back to 100% within 30 minutes, and then you should have a good chunk of charging there as well. I don't know why I'm trying to show you that on the screen, but it is what it is. And then the Nano definitely takes a little longer to charge. And so that would be the full rundown of these guys as far as battery, overheating, and all of those things. And if you enjoyed this video and got value out of it, which was the goal, and it took a lot of time to do, then now you know. Now you have all the information you need to make that informed decision on which camera you would choose based on that metric. What I will say is this. If I had to depend on one camera for filming over long periods of time, I'm going with the Ultra every time. And the charging thing is the Ultra charges faster too. So there's that. It is what it is. Also overheating, yeah. It is a problem. It is a problem. And I don't know if they're going to fix that or how they're going to fix that, but there you go. So maybe you're really going to sink or swim. Let's rise with the tide, and I'll see you on the flip side.